Hello and welcome to the Daily Reset for Success show. My name is Marian LaSalle and this is my co-host Melinda Cooper.
Hi, everyone.
So if you're watching us live, we are on YouTube or Facebook under the Natural Curiosity channel. If you're listening to us, you're on a podcast on your favorite app, whatever that happens to be. My favorite, of course, is iTunes because I have an iPhone. But you may have an Android and you're listening to us on Stitcher or SoundCloud or whatever your favorite one is. Spotify is a favorite, I understand. When I look at my stats, I see a lot of people on iPhones and on Spotify, which I never even heard of until I started podcasting. So whatever you're doing, whether you're out mowing the lawn or you're walking the dog or you're doing the dishes, you can listen to us, right, Melinda?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm laughing at myself because, I'm still playing with who I am and where I am today, but that's okay. I moved and it's all right. I'm good. Yes. You can hear us anywhere, anytime, any place, because we will help you laugh. We will help you reset. And then we're going to give you some good ideas on how to make a difference in yourself.
Yes, and today our topic is about fear, overcoming fear, dealing with fear, becoming friends with fear. I heard something on the radio yesterday about how, you know, there's no possibility that you can get rid of adrenaline. So if somebody comes too close to you in the car, your adrenaline spikes and you can say, well, thank you for that. But now you can just go away. You can, like,
Well,
look, talk to your fear and talk to your responses, acknowledge it instead of just trying to fight it. Does that make sense to you, Melinda?
it absolutely does. It's funny that you say that. I know that Marion hears me driving quite often. So I call it my mobile office. And when I'm driving and somebody just really, oh Lord, I turn around and I'm driving and I say, you know what? You need to go with God and go in peace and just go out of my way. It's because if you want to do whatever you're going to do, you need to go in God's hands because I can't fix stupid. you know and so when you look at that, it's the idea that I could get very upset and I could cuss them because they make me scared that they're going to run into me, they're going to clip me in the car, or they're going to push me into somebody else because they're being stupid. And that's a real fear, and your adrenaline starts pumping. My first diffuser is go with God, go in peace, and just get out of my way.
You know, I've learned a lot about how to overcome my anger and frustration and um, the feelings that I have when someone does something, let's call it stupid, okay? Stupid. Why are you doing that? We have this area in the community I live in where they open it up 3 lanes and then they close it back into 2 lanes and then they open it back up to 3 lanes. And so don't you know that people spread out? And then when it comes time to come back together again, they're like, I want to get in front of you. Okay. And I don't care if we get into an accident or not, I'm going to get in front of you because I want to be in front of you. I don't want to be behind you. You might go too slow. And so I'm feeling all that, I'm seeing it, I'm feeling it. So now what I've done is recognize that this happens every single time, that I need to change. They're never going to change. It's coming from me. My fear of being crashed into is all up to me. What
That's
a
really,
change.
that really is a lot of it. It comes into the concept of it's not so much of what happens to us, it's more the fact of how we react to it.
Mm-hmm.
And our fear, most people don't realize our fear usually is triggered by something of the past, right? It's something from the past. I used to laugh when my daughter was very, very babyish, very young, and she'd reach up to the stove and my mother would spank her hand, and I would never say anything. And she'd reach up to the stove and she'd spank her hand. And my mother said, "You should stop." I said, "No, ma'am." She says, "What?" I said, "The outer perimeter is hot, not the fire itself, just the, remember the old stoves there, just the chrome around it or whatever was warm, right? So I would let her touch that. It wasn't burning her. No, no, no. It wasn't burning her. It wasn't, but she would get close enough to where she'd feel the heat. She wouldn't even touch it. She'd feel the heat. She'd go, hot, hot, right? And it was funny because my mother said she didn't even touch it. I said, no. But I had taught her that if it was hot, no, right? No, it's going to burn you. It's going to hurt, right? So I would put my hand close to the stove and I'd go, hot, ow, hot, ow. So my daughter automatically, she didn't even touch the stove, but in her mind as a little girl, she touched it because she was like, ow, it's hot. And she didn't even touch it. But the fear of that hot, of that hurt, of that ow that she saw from me kept her from hitting that stove.
I like
Right?
that way of teaching.
Yeah,
You're
right.
teaching,
So go ahead.
you're teaching by allowing them to see it and see your reaction.
That's right. That's right. She saw, and I would get close to it. I wouldn't have to touch it. I go, oh, hot, And some other people, for me, that's what happens. We either something happened to us ourselves, or we saw it from somebody else, and we go, oh, God, they did that, and that, they broke their foot, they broke their leg, they did, whatever. And when you think about that, that's what reinforces the fear.
So the fear is not only installed in us by God, but it's also installed in us by what we learn from our parents and from our siblings and things like that. So sometimes fear is baseless. Sometimes it's totally life and death. Like there's a lot in between as well. So what we have to do in the moment is just decide, well, thank you for sharing that adrenaline rush with me. It's over now. We can go back to normal. I don't think there's any way that you could get around that.
No, you have to address. You still have to address it,
Mhm.
whatever it is, right? I'm going to give you a funny laugh about myself. I was raised with 7 brothers, and I was the only girl. So they would put me at the end of the row, except for the baby. We have our baby. Of course, he's 4 years, 5 years younger than me. But the baby was right beside me. But my father believed in went back in the day when you could give your children whippings or spankings without anybody calling child abuse, right? He would spank me back in the day. And he would start with the oldest and come down the road, right down the line. So by the time he started spanking the third son, he'd give me 1, 2 out, 1, 2 out, like this. By the time he hit the third, I started crying. I would just start crying because I knew I was next, right? So my mother couldn't help it. She'd start laughing because she's like, "You haven't even spanked." So my father would only give me one because I still needed to experience it, and he still needed to get his point across as my father. But I would only get one spanking, where all the boys would go, "All right, we need to start spanking too, rather start crying too, rather than fighting the battle." Right? I would just the minute he'd bring out, "Okay, we're going to be disciplined," because I knew the fear. I knew that I did not want to be spanked. I did not want to go through that. It wasn't as if my father was beating us or gratefully, or we're not talking about massive discipline. We're talking about the fact that he was like, "Do you see what you did? Blah, blah, blah. Bam. All right, now go on. Bam." And we're talking, but I didn't care. Just I was ready for the scolding. I'd take my scolding, but I did not want to hear the bam part, right? And I would just start crying. To this day, every now and then I have my oldest brother. Every now and then he'll do something, and the tone of his voice or
Mm.
something will take me back to that. And I look at him, and my eyes water a little bit. And every now and then he laughs and he goes, "Now I am not going to spank you." But you know, it was a trigger. It
He
was a trigger.
remembers.
It was a trigger from way back. Right? It's a trigger because obviously at this age, at my life, at his life, he is not going to bend me over his knee. Now it would be a knockdown fight. Oh, no, you don't, right? But the fear is there. My eyes start to water a little bit, and I just kind of, and he starts chuckling, please, we're not going to go that route. And he's right. But the fear, the memory still tags every now and then. And that's what the fear that we have to get over. We have to give ourselves a break and let me reset that.
Sometimes it takes therapy. Sometimes it takes a group, like a 12-step group. Sometimes it takes having a friend. Sometimes it's you. You have to talk to yourself. You have to talk to your memories. You have to talk to the people that installed that fear.
And sometimes it begins with forgiveness.
Well, sometimes it's not even about forgiveness, but like I'm going to give you a memory of mine. I never had any fear of heights, but I saw my father flipping out at the thought, because we used to do a lot of camping we used to have a motorhome, and my parents would take us from Michigan at Easter time. We would have 2 weeks off, and so we would always go to Florida. So we would take our time. We'd stop in the Smoky Mountains. We did a lot of hiking and exploring. And I remember the fear, the absolute terror in my father when he thought one of us was going to slip and fall, or he was going to slip and fall. He was so afraid of heights. It was unbelievable. So I remember thinking to myself, well, I'm not afraid of that. But the more I saw it, the more I was like, well, maybe I better be afraid of it, And now you can't even get me up on a ladder. I have that fear now installed in me.
That's right. You learned it through him, right? And for me, when I say forgiveness, I usually talk to myself and I say, Melinda, I forgive you for holding on to that from a little girl. It's okay. As a little girl, we held on to it. And I forgive you because it really, now you're not that little girl anymore. It's okay. Forgive yourself for holding it, but now we can let it go. Right? We can, you've heard me oftentimes, let go and let God.
Stop. My dog.
I was going to say, are we being growled at?
This is how she gets attention. She coughs. Have you ever heard of anything like that? Come here. Let me show you. Let me show you off to everybody. Okay. Let me show you off. This is that little voice that you hear. That coughing is coming from this one because she wants attention.
And she's like, "Here I am. Here I am.
Here I am. Here I am."
We've been laughing because we have the grandbaby that's been coming over to visit, and we daycare, and my husband daycares, and so we laugh a little bit because our son's cat, who is visiting, right, with the minute he moves the baby out of his lap, he runs over there and jumps on it and puts his head back like, rub my neck, give me attention. And we laugh because he wants that attention that he sees that the baby is getting.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. I get it. Well, this is another thing that people are really afraid of, and that is animals biting. Okay. So I remember I was pretty young, and a friend of mine, I was at my boyfriend's mother's house, and she had a friend over that had a little chihuahua, or chihuahua, however you say that. And that chihuahua started shaking, and somebody else brought another dog over, and it was like freaking out. So I picked it up, kind of like I did with my baby here. And I'm like, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. And she turned around and I won't even give you the sound effects. You can imagine, and bit down. And it was, so now I have this fear of chihuahuas, these little biting maniacs. Okay. Yeah.
Well, mine is pit bulls.
Okay.
I had a friend, she's still alive, gratefully. I haven't seen her in a while. But when we were seniors in high school, I will tell you that I weighed 82 pounds as a senior.
Are you kidding me?
No, I'm not.
What happened to you?
You know what? children, life, stress, et cetera, you know?
Uh-huh.
But, so she was just as small as I was, but she had a horse and she would go and ride the horse. Well, one day she went and the people next to the stable had a pit bull. Now, my friend weighed 80 pounds. Okay. We were very tiny, very small little girls at the time. And um, unfortunately, the pit bull climbed under the fence and literally tore her up. She ended up having over 100 stitches. And somebody, she was screaming and nobody was there. But I was so afraid from then on. When I see a pit bull, I'm like, thanks. Granted, I'm not that same age, but my first thought is I don't even want half of what she had, right? And then to
None.
reinforce it, we were in Richardson. We had a house in Richardson, and what happened was a pit bull got out of one of our neighbors' fences, and we didn't even know it. And another dog got out from somebody else's fence, and before you know it, that pit bull had that smaller dog by the neck. My husband went out there and tried to honk and tried to splash water on it, tried to get that dog away. Finally, do you know he got a shovel and hit the pit bull on the head? And do you know that pit bull never even flinched? In the meantime, I called the pet control, right? I'm like, oh my God, this pit bull's out here. So when I see a pit bull, I'm like, everybody, I have people that say, oh, they're just as good as the owners, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't care. I don't care how good they are. I don't care if they're people in the Taj Mahal. I do not care. I do not want one beside me, around me, or within biting range, because I've learned that, right? 2 instances, I'm like, I'm good.
So in this case, you do not want to overcome that fear. You're okay with that fear.
If it's a red light and it's going to keep me from being that hurt, absolutely. I need that fear.
Okay. So for you, that is, I'm going to put her down now. So for you, that's a fear that you're okay with. But let's say you have a fear that's irrational. That's what we're right. That's what we're trying to overcome. That's not irrational to me. Pit bulls are known for not only biting, but they have the type of jaw that it has to go on down before it can be released. So it creates a lot of damage. That's not irrational. To me, that is a very rational fear that you have, that you experienced, and that you just want to stay away from those type of animals. What I'm talking about here today is if you have an irrational fear or a fear that is okay, it's not irrational, but you don't want the effects that it has on you. Sometimes you need help. Sometimes you need exposure. I'm going to give an example that Melinda and I both have experienced, and that is public speaking. So they say most people fear public speaking more than they do their own death. And I totally understand where they're coming from. And the only way to overcome that for me was exposure. So the first time anybody ever told me I was going to be speaking or that I was a speaker, I said, no, I'm not. I was at a networking group looking for speakers for my events, which was networking. I had networking events and I was looking for speakers. So that was in my mind, that's what a speaker was. Somebody who had a presentation and they stood up and they had business cards and people wanted to hire them. That was a speaker. So when we went around the room and I introduced myself, I said, well, I'm not a speaker, but I'm here looking for speakers for my event. And the owner said, he's from Dallas, by the way, Jeff Klein. He said, you are a speaker. And I looked at him like, no, that's fearful. I don't want to be a speaker. That would scare the heck out of me. He says, don't you get up in front of your group every week and speak in front of your group and tell them things and announce things and lead the group? I said, yeah, I do. He said, you're a speaker. Well, that changed everything. I'm a speaker? Well, I guess I better start speaking then. So I started on that journey of actually looking for speaking gigs. So have I ever told you the story that I have about being on a radio program, Miss Melinda Cooper?
I apologize, please. I'm sorry. My husband was telling me he has now left one doctor's appointment and going to the next. So, have you ever told me? I apologize. Tell me.
A story about how I was my first radio interview.
No, tell me. Tell me.
So there was a nice young lady who had a radio program, and this was before the internet and before all that stuff was on. So it was truly a radio program that went out on AM and FM stations, right? So I could hear them. I could do it from home. It was all done on a phone, but I could hear them getting ready to announce me, and I could feel in my heart. I could I was getting short of breath. I was starting to, bounce back and forth. I was starting to panic because I knew they were getting ready to announce me.
Right.
And my partner was sitting next to me, and I handed her the phone and I said, "Here, you have to do it. I can't do it. They're getting ready." She looked at me and she said the F word. Yes, she did. And she said, "F you. You're the one that signed up for that. I'm not doing this." And so I'm on the phone on this radio. They announced me, and I am hyperventilating, but I'm going through it. I didn't pass out. I didn't hang the phone up. I literally went through it. When it was all over, the lady said to me, "I thought you were having sex." It sounded like
No.
because I was. But here's this. Here's the gem in all this. I didn't let it stop me. I did it again, and I was afraid again, and I did it again, and I was afraid again, and I did it again. And this time I slipped out right before they called my name. I slipped out and went to the bathroom, right? But then I did it again. And this time my heart didn't pound quite as much. And then I did it again and again. I kept putting myself out there because I wanted to be a speaker. He told me I was a speaker.
Well, yeah, I'm really glad that you did that because I've got to tell you.
Hey, we got some people in
Hey,
the audience.
hey, Lauren.
There's Lauren Rhines. And guess who else is here, Melinda?
Who?
Jody.
Hey, girl. How are you? So I'm going to tell you that my fear has been for years is being on video.
Ah, I didn't know
My
that.
camera, I'm a camera person. I do videography, I do photography. I've done all the work and I know how it's supposed to work and I know how it's supposed to look. And my good friend, Marion LaSalle, says, Melinda, you should be in front of the camera. And I
You've
said,
got so much to share, Melinda. You need to be in front of the camera. You've got so much to share, Melinda.
That's what she would say to me. What crazy woman was talking to her? And I was like, let me write it down. How about if I write it and you can say it? How about if we can put up pictures? How about she's like, Melinda, you have to get in front of the camera. I'm like, Marion, I don't like you right now. I really don't like you right now.
Oh, you just make
Melinda.
excuses.
And I would say, oh no, I can't do this. Oh, well, no, I can't do that. Well, and it's funny because I would even go to Houston and I was one of Marion's speakers. I would go, I would go and I would speak in front of her networking group. I would meet people. I would speak in front of other groups. But you want me on video? Please. I was like, no. Mm-mm. So Marion Flat told me, she says, Melinda, you're coaching other people. You're training other people. This is a part of you. And you really need to be in front of that camera.
And the more you've done it, haven't you seen over the time that you get less and less? Now it's like no big deal. Turn the camera on. Hi, everybody.
Yeah, well, now it's funny because Marion can tell you before, I'm very grateful, very grateful. Before I was self-conscious because I had long hair. I looked doopy. I looked doppy. I looked like I don't know what. It's just like I felt like an old hippy dippy that, I mean, really was. And so I was like, well, my feet were tapping. I'd sit on my hands. I would, act like I'm not doing anything, and I'd be singing my song underneath. I'd even, right? And Mary is like, Melinda, did you know you look kind of funny going, and I'd go, Marion, I'm humming. She goes, no, we don't, no, no, Melinda, we don't need you humming. So now, gratefully, I don't hum anymore. I don't tap my feet anymore. But it was a reality that I made the decision of how much or how important it was for me to overcome this fear to achieve my goals. If I wanted my goal bad enough, I was going to have to believe Marion LaSalle, who says, Melinda, you should be in front of the camera. So sometimes the fear that we have to overcome is our self-talk. It's what's holding us in that spot that says, maybe you're not good enough. Maybe you don't have what it takes. Maybe. But then when you take this deep breath, you look yourself in the mirror, you have great friends who keep telling you you can do this. You look in the mirror and you say, maybe I'm not, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to put myself out there anyway. I'm going to go ahead and go up and down the roller coaster. I'm going to step in front and I'm going to silence that mind, that self-talk.
I call it the monkey mind.
That's right. Absolutely. And it comes from all over. And when you least expect it. And at that moment, that's when you have to say,
thanks for sharing.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it's like, I don't care what you say. I got to do this anyway. You know what? I don't care if you're doubting yourself. Suck it up, big girl. Pull up your big bloomers
Suck
and let's
it up,
go for it.
Buttercup.
That's right. That's right. Because you know what? Self-talk defeats, right? Unless it's positive talk, it keeps us in our fears. Because we've been telling it for a long time. We're afraid.
Yeah, the fear has been our friend, or we thought.
Mhm.
Okay, so some practical tips if you're trying to overcome some fear in your life, whether it's travel, public speaking, fear of children, fear of dogs, fear of sunshine.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what the fear is. If you're trying to overcome it, if you're trying to live with it, if you're trying to grab it by the butt and shake it, there are different ways. So let's talk about the different ways. Okay, the first one, exposure. Keep exposing yourself to it. If it's something like a
Being in front of
dog
the camera.
or being in front of the camera, or if it's something that I will say, if it's irrational, if it's totally irrational, other people are doing it and they're not dying. If it's an irrational fear that you're really going to die if you stand up in front of talk, then you can get some help. Okay. Now, there's plenty of YouTube channel subjects, people that are talking about it, fear, overcoming fear. A lot of people have it. You could talk to a friend. You could learn to talk to yourself. Melinda talked about looking yourself in the mirror. You could learn to say thank you for sharing, but I have something I want to do over here, so I'm not going to pay attention to you right now. Or thanks for sharing, but you can leave now, like adrenaline rushes and things like that. Breathing, that's another big one. Breathing is very important, especially when you're getting ready to do something. Let's say you have a boss and your boss tells you have to give a presentation. Now, these are your peers. You're going to be thinking the whole time, what are they thinking of me? Or they think I'm stupid? Do I look okay? I mean, Thank you for sharing, but I need to get through this right now. Let's talk later. I mean, you could really literally talk to yourself without becoming, you know, cuckoo.
Yeah, one of the things that for me, Marion, to overcome, like you say, just an irrational or just a fear that I need to just let go of, is the reality of facing how important is it for me to get to the other side. So when I have a fear that says, I don't think you're ready to get in front of that camera. I don't think you're ready to do live, go live, right? I say, you know what? I may not be ready, but what is it they say? I'm more fearful of not even trying.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
have the fact that, what is it they say? You cannot make any of your dreams come true if you're not even willing to give it a try. So
There
for
you
me,
go.
it's a giving myself permission to value what that is.
And I
And
think what Melinda's trying to get across here is you can talk to yourself.
yes,
So you can get help from others, or you can talk to yourself. You can learn to live with it, or you can tell it, thank you for sharing. Time just flies by. I don't know. When you and I get
already
together, it's like, oh my goodness. I want to invite you to join me over on Patreon. So whether you are listening or watching or want to join the community, there's a lot of different ways you can do that. I want you to come over to patreon.com/natural curiosity and check it out and look for us because I want you in the community. If you enjoyed today's program, this is happening almost every day. Notice I said almost because I'm not here every single day, but almost. And we want you part of this group. We want you to participate. We want you to be involved. And that's the way you do it. You join your tribe, your community, your peeps. And if we are it for you, we want you in here. So come on over to patreon.com/natural curiosity and hang out with us.
come
Melinda
out
has
and have
something really cool. I know I want you to be able to say goodbye, Melinda. I want to touch base just a little bit on what Melinda's up to. She has a private membership group on Facebook, and she's doing live presentations right now. I'd love for you to be able to see that. If you're in business and you want to be involved in that, I'd be happy to give you the information that you need to join Melinda because she's doing some great and wonderful work over at Living the Dream Business. Thank you, Melinda.
thank you for having me. And folks, I want to say, come join Natural Curiosity. Come join the people. Find people who are just like you there. They laugh, they cry, we laugh at ourselves, we laugh at each other, and it's okay because what you'd be surprised how much further you can go. I hope to see you on the inside of Natural Curiosity. Thank you, Marion, and everyone for allowing me to be here today. Mwah!
Now, I want you to be good, and I want you to create a wonderful day for yourself. Get out there, create it. It's all up to you. See you again very soon.